What if you could walk into a group of people and pick out those that you should avoid? Pick out those who are likely to be toxic, conflictual, or maybe even narcissistic. What if you could actually learn who you should avoid because they might be psychologically exploitive, or worse yet, break your heart? I'm going to teach you 5 things to watch out for. Now, I know this is not 100% foolproof, but you don't need to be a psychologist like I am in order to learn how to identify the majority of toxic individuals. This is the 2nd episode of a series called Toxic Love that drops every Wednesday, and I hope you'll check out the first, where I share my story of what happened. But we're going to take the next year every week and look at a pathological love relationship from start to finish. We're going to deconstruct what happens and how things go sideways, including all the controversial things that sometimes we get uncomfortable talking about. I'm going to help you get into the mind of a survivor. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to improve your accuracy in spotting narcissistic individuals. But I want to tell you, there is one exception of these types of people that's even hard for me to spot in a group. There are 5 different subtypes of narcissistic individuals. They are the grandiose or the overt narcissist, the covert narcissist, the malignant, or also known as the narcissistic sociopath, the hero type, and then the antagonistic. And at the end, if you stick around to the end, I'm going to tell you which of these subtypes I have a hard time spotting and why. I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a mental health specialist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I'm a narcissistic abuse survivor. Back in the day when I was going to grad school, there was a professor that was like the end-all be-all. He was the guy that you wanted to take a class with because he had made some big advancement in psychology. And he happened to offer like a weekend seminar that I took before I had to sign up for classes. And so I sat in that seminar and watched how he treated the students in the room. He was one of those teachers who loved to put people on the spot. He would set up a test question that you knew was really a trap. And then sure enough, some vulnerable person would step in and he'd make that person look like a fool in front of the whole room. I watched a friend of mine, have that happen to her, how she raised her hand eager to answer and get his feedback on what she thought. And sure enough, he embarrassed her in front of the rest of us. And I said to myself, I am not taking a class with this guy. I'm not going to have him put me on a spot like that. Maybe you're not attending school and you haven't had a professor like this, but I'll bet you there will come a time or place when you're going to meet somebody like this. Maybe it's on one of the mothers on the PTA room, or it's somebody that's in your neighborhood association. Or maybe you're working with somebody at the office who's exactly like this, or you're going to a party and sure enough, this individual is there. What are the 5 things that you can watch for that will help you know that you are meeting someone who potentially might be toxic? First, pay attention to how they treat the attention of other people. Narcissists and toxic people need what's called supply. And what we mean when we say that is they want excessive attention, like they want admiration, adoration, they want love, they want attention, they want some kind of excessive focus on themselves. Notice when you walk into a room, there's somebody who seems to be gathering the attention of those around them. Usually they stand in the center of a crowd and they seem to be entertaining those around them with one story or another, or they're doing something that's a form of showing off. This is a tip-off to you that this person may need some form of supply, and that what they're getting from that individuals around them is that. Number 2, toxic and narcissistic people are often very charismatic and mesmerizing. They exude this bold confidence. They'll take risks that most of us are kind of hesitant or too self-conscious to do. They'll make outrageous statements, or they're not afraid to go to the first of the line, or do something that's really unusual, or to say something outlandish. If you meet someone who has this kind of risk-taking confidence, almost bravado, be careful, because that's another sign that you may have met somebody who's on the more toxic or narcissistic end. Number 3, they tend to activate our insecurities. This is something you'll have to notice internally. It's how you feel being around this individual rather than what you observe them doing. So if you've met somebody that suddenly makes you feel aware of your lack of accomplishments, maybe you're feeling less attractive, more self-conscious, maybe you are more hesitant and starting to feel embarrassed, this is a sign that you may have met somebody who has a need to feel better than, more special than other people, and they're doing something subtly, almost unconsciously, to make you feel put in your place. And they'll tend to accent or accentuate our insecurities. Number 4, watch out for somebody who takes a superior social position, who seems to need to show off in a kind of an unsolicited way. They'll want to do some kind of demonstration of how much they know, or how smart they are, or maybe how much education they have, or how much money they have. They'll be the one that will be buying everybody rounds of drinks. Be very careful when you meet someone who needs to sort of show this kind of grandiosity and generosity. And number 5, sometimes narcissists appear too good to be true. So if you meet somebody who just seems over the top amazing, like they're great at everything, or they seem to be like the perfect match of what you're looking for, they probably are too good to be true. Narcissistic and toxic people are very good at mirroring and mimicking us, and so they reflect back what we want to see. They reflect back ourselves, so they seem to become the perfect person, or the perfect fit, or the perfect coworker, or a perfect daughter or debutante or bombshell, or the perfect gentleman. So if you meet somebody who seems to be too good to be true, that probably is. So I mentioned that there are 5 subtypes: the antagonistic, malignant, covert, the overt, and then the hero. And each of these are going to present a little differently in a group setting. So the overt narcissist is the braggart. They're the easiest to spot because they're definitely the center of attention. They're going to be the one with the lampshade, or regaling stories of their accomplishments and victories. The malignant is a little more predatory, so watch the way in which they ask you a lot of questions and seem to be too interested in the things that people normally don't ask about early on. The hero type is going to be the do-gooder. This person is going to be sharing, and it's often more women than men, they'll be sharing all the really great things and how they're involved on this board or this activity, or helping out with this nonprofit. So kind of watch out for those that sort of need to accentuate all the great things that they're doing. The antagonistic person is the one who just loves to play devil's advocate. So they're going to be more combative and always sort of one-up you in a conversation. But here's the type that I have the roughest time spotting, and it's the covert narcissist. A lot of us have issues with that, and that's because the covert narcissist plays the victim, and we often mistaken their sob story for signs of sympathy and sensitivity. So when we hear of all the hard knocks and rough goes that they've had, we end up thinking that they are understanding of our troubles and difficulties, and that they'll be there for us when we need their support. We don't realize that they're as egocentric as every other subtype. So how can you get better at spotting them? Because this is kind of a trial and error experience. I'd like to challenge you to, next time you walk into a group setting with strangers and when you don't know everybody, for you to ask yourself who you think is narcissistic in the room, and realize that roughly 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 10 in that room is going to be on the more narcissistic end. So watch how people ask questions. What kind of questions are they asking? And what might be the motivation of those questions? One of the errors we often make is that we fill in what we think based upon ourselves. We often don't have enough information, and we assume people are more well-intended than they sometimes are. So when you get an odd question, ask yourself, why might they ask this, and what might be the possible reasons for it? Second, put aside your need to be liked and your desire for approval from strangers. One of the things I've learned is, just like you don't go into a grocery store hungry because you're going to buy too much, don't go into a party or into an unknown setting needy and feeling insecure to the degree that you can avoid that. Try to shore yourself up. Go in rested and have eaten and feeling centered with yourself. It makes you less insecure and less vulnerable to the other people's opinions. Then watch what happens over the course of the time that you're with these individuals and see how the relationships dynamics play out. Because this is a skill that takes practice. So you want to make some guesses and then test yourself on your guesses to see how correct you were. Maybe you missed something. And over time, by kind of challenging yourself this way, you can get better at learning how to spot toxic people. Test your theories about the individuals that you meet and see how good you are at this. And then come back and let me know how it goes. And have you subscribed to this channel so that you don't miss the next in this episode of the Toxic Love series? Next week, we're going to be talking about the red flags in dating. And be sure to check out the last one, the first in this series, when I share what happens to me as a psychologist and how I got pulled into a very narcissistically toxic relationship that nearly cost me my life.